He was always there, lurking in the darkness of Khazad-dûm, at least since the end of the War of Wrath, sleeping in the depths, waiting to be reawakened. Sauron would come to know this, during his flight from the Justice of the West, from Eonwë and the host of the Valar ere the Second Age began. He quickly thought of what allies he might call upon, those who could hear his call. For centuries after, he would search and scour across Middle-earth, performing sacraments of darkness to call upon Morgoth in the Void, his commander of old, and perhaps Morgoth would seek to answer. Not to save Sauron, no, but to further scar the world of Arda. To that end, he would reveal to Sauron the secrets of breeding orcs, trolls, and other horrid creatures, but withheld the secrets of dragon-making and a few other dark arts. Yet, Morgoth, even from beyond the world of Arda, made it clear to his lieutenant, the last one carrying out his will upon Arda, that other such secrets would be revealed in time. As the Second Age went on, the Rings of Power were made, Sauron brought war to the elves and dwarves, Númenor was drowned, and Sauron was defeated in the end. The Third Age would come to the world. Yet, in Sauron's disembodied and weakened state, he could hear the call of his master's other pets from across Middle-earth. The dragons of the North, particularly, whom Sauron would attempt and fail to secure an alliance with, but another call, too. The breath of terror, flame, and shadow. Sauron would be made aware of a Balrog, one of Morgoth's greatest servants, besides himself, of course, slumbering and awakening in the depths of Khazad-dûm. Sauron would smile at the news of Durin's Bane slaying the dwarves, his great enemies since at least the War of the Elves and Sauron when they saved the elves of Eregion fleeing northward, and had yet closed their doors on him, the Dark Lord, were finally being ousted from their own home. In this time of strife and change for the Free Peoples, Sauron would skirt the bounds of Lorien as a fell spirit, entering Moria from its eastern gate and descending into the depths, until he could feel the heat of Angband through the halls of the dwarves. Hence he came at last to the throne of Durin, where the Balrog could be found. Sauron recalled the feeling of power, the heat of unnatural evil, the will for greater tyranny carried by each Balrog. While this was perhaps one of the lesser Balrogs, he was one nonetheless. Yet he was a Balrog who had not been chained for a time, and was stronger in form than Sauron was at this point. In this moment, the tyranny of Morgoth became that of Sauron, and even as this Durin's Bane lunged to attack the Dark Lord, Sauron called upon the beast to answer to him. Tinged with Morgoth's power of voice, the Balrog submitted. Sauron ordered him to keep the dwarves out of Moria for the time to come, for that was the Balrog's reward for smashing the greatest kingdom of Durin's folk that Middle-earth had ever known. But Sauron would call for him one day. The Dark Lord left, returning to Dol Guldur, keeping the knowledge of the Balrog in the back of his mind for when he should have need. After more centuries to come, the events of The Hobbit would take place, and Sauron would be ousted by the White Council, returning to Mordor, but first, returning to his ally, nay, his servant. Sauron recalled him from Moria as well. He would skirt the bounds of Lorien, even though the Balrog would certainly want to destroy the elves who lived there. I think Sauron would see the power of Galadriel could be a threat to his new beast. With the Nazgul, the Balrog, and many other servants by his side in Mordor, he rebuilt his army and his Dark Tower. The Dark Lord recognized that a Balrog on the front lines of his war with the West would serve him better than anything else could. For, while the One Ring was indeed somewhere out there in the world, he didn't want another Maya to touch it, as even though his hold on the Balrog was strong, the lure of the ring would be stronger. And so he set to making his Balrog anew, like the commander Gothmog of old, not like his Sauron that he named in reverence for the old Balrog. Nay, Durin's Bane he would be called no longer. He was the Flame of Udun, or just Udun for short, named for the region in Mordor, and also named for Autumno, Morgoth's fortress of old. He would lead from the front, and his eyes would be put on Gondor. And so it was that the Balrog was forged armor that would be enchanted by Morgul magic, and the ring could wait, for Sauron wished to revisit his enmity with the Númenorian kingdom of old one last time. And so, as 3018 came, the forces of Mordor would attack Osgiliath, but simply not for the reason of getting the Nazgul across, but to garrison the old city. The The Balrog would be a surprise held for later. The Nazgul crossed to search for the One Ring as they do in the canon. Mostly everything would be the same as it is in the story of the Lord of the Rings, up to the things concerning Moria. In Moria, the Fellowship would actually find it pretty easy to pass, opting to go there first instead of trying the pass of Caradhras. Not only that, they would encounter Balin's company, which had not broken contact with the outside world, as these dwarves strove to retake Khazad-dûm. Without the Balrog, honestly, the orcs could prove problematic, but perhaps defeatable by these dwarves. By this time, Balin's company would have taken off, fighting many orcs, but holding their ground against the drums in the deep. The Fellowship would be sped through to Lothlorien, and Gandalf the Grey would not fall to Shadow and Flame. But everything with a cost. With the failure of the Ringwraiths to get the ring, Sauron would call them back once more to take Osgiliath, this time permanently. They would do so with some speed, leading what forces they had out of Minas Morgul to take the city, and gather their forces there, rather than in Mordor and Minas Ithil corrupted. A dark, shapeless force, some new sort of devilry, would be rumored to linger there among the rangers of Ithilien, and they would push back to prepare the city and light the beacons, sooner than it happened in the canon. A few weeks sooner. Sure, their armies were not as gathered as they would be in the original canon, but it probably wouldn't matter. Sure, Sauron did not have all of the forces he would need, but he roughly knew where the ring was and who was with it, due to his Nazgul following them to Rivendell and sending one to fly over them upon the Anduin that Legolas would shoot at. Now was the time to strike, while Gandalf and the others attended to their plans. Thus, the great armies of Morgul, Mordor, the south, and east would be unleashed onto the Pelennor fields, and pushing the siege weapon Grond would be him, the Flame of Udun. All 9 Nazgul flanked his side, destroying the defenses of Gondor, all while the Balrog rammed the gate of Minas Tirith himself. No arrow could turn him or his armor aside. No man of Gondor could find the courage of the elves of Gondolin from ages ago, and the Flame of Udun roared in fiery passion, tearing the gates asunder and slaughtering every Gondorian with his troll vanguard. If Gondolin was a defeat for the Free Peoples, then this was a massacre. The Balrog did not rest until he burned the White Tree and slaughtered Denethor and Faramir both. Gondor was broken in a single night. The Night of Sudden Flame it would be named. The Great Eagles would carry word of this to the Fellowship, who, together with Gandalf, fought off the advances of Saruman's Uruks, making it across Nen Hithuel. Boromir, Aragorn, and the others mourned the utter state of the world of men, and Gandalf and Legolas knew from Gwaihir's description that this must be a Balrog. The plans of Sauron unfolded before the Grey Wizard. He would destroy Gondor. Whatever happened to Durin's Bane, he recognized that this must be it. Sauron must have taken him out of Moria many years before and unleashed him upon his enemies. Saruman would take out Rohan, and even if the One Ring should make it to Mordor, there may be nothing left to fight for. Disunity is always the greatest gift from the enemy, yet they found some sort of similar alliance in all of this. The Fellowship would dreadfully agree to the next step. If Sauron's forces were emptying into Gondor, the Black Gate must be open. They should continue their journey, despite it all. Going through the Emyn Wheel, dead marshes and so on, they would come to the dreaded gate, even as Sauron's armies wiped out the coasts of Gondor and made their way up towards Rohan to join with Saruman's Uruks. It was a race against time, so the Fellowship would sleep for mere hours, pressing on with little rest in between. Day by day went very quickly, and again they slept little. They would disguise themselves using their cloaks until passing the threshold of the gate. Then they would seek cover among the rocks and the dells, pressing ever onward towards the mountain of fire. And if Durin's Bane, as they assumed, was still somewhere in Gondor, they could take Sauron unawares and at least save what was rest of the world. The Fellowship encountered little in the way of resistance, for most orcs, the Nazgul, and others were not in Mordor. Finally, nearly 2 weeks after entering Emyn Wheel, they found themselves climbing the slopes of Mount Doom itself. The ring had tested the hearts of the company, but with Gandalf's counsel and the courage of the Free Peoples, desperate to succeed in their hearts, they pushed on together. Boromir at this point only sought vengeance, but now had wisdom enough to see that only the destruction of the ring could bring it about. But even as they climbed to the final stairs outside of Sammath Naur, they felt a great dread fall upon them. and it wasn't Gollum that had been following them for weeks at this point. Something else had come. Before stepping into the fray, Gandalf looked at the others. "It seems I have guided you as far as I could. The Dark Lord was more prepared than I could have expected. Go now and find the courage in your hearts to do what we came here to do. Lead them on, Aragorn." Stepping up upon the threshold, Gandalf met the sneering face of that which he expected. The flame of Udun. "Go back to the shadow." The Balrog blocked the door, but Gandalf used all the power he could, all the power he had left to him, to engage the Balrog, another Maya in combat. And so they fought, a great swirl of lightning and fire, shadow and light, even as Frodo and the others ran past them. Coming to the very crack of doom, Frodo took out the ring, and the will of the company stayed true. Yet the ring-bearer faltered, taking it for himself, not being able to fulfill Gandalf's request, seeing a vision where he, the Ring Lord, could save the wizard if he would but take the ring and battle Durin's Bane. And even as he did, the screeching of many Nazgul could be heard, the Fellowship all prepared for battle. Perhaps the flame of Udun was here to stop Gandalf, he who might give Frodo the courage he needed to destroy the ring, if that was their intent, for none now might wield the ring against Sauron and the Balrog and hope to win, not truly. And the Nazgul could easily wrest the ring from the control of a weakened Balrog that Sauron would no longer need, not with his ring back and his greatest opposition destroyed. Evil's unity had, of course, fallen apart, but here at the end, when it was no longer needed. Sauron himself walked the great causeway from Barad-dûr to Mount Doom for this final moment. Yet even as the hobbits prepared for the end, and Frodo succumbed to the ring, getting ready to attack the flame of Udun, all those involved had planned for great battles against powerful foes, yet not one loathsome creature. One who had not much entered into the considerations of Gandalf, and not at all for Sauron. Gollum. He bit the ring from Frodo while the others were distracted, and took it for himself as this great battle of powers broke out and fell into the fire. Sauron and his Nazgul were thus defeated, but the same could not be said of Durin's Bane, who now only fought for himself and the slaying of his enemies here. Gandalf yelled for the rest to run and escape the fire, but with the end of Sauron, his own mission was complete. If he could now only take one more evil Maiar away from the free peoples, he could be at peace. And so, even as wizard and demon fought, and fire swirled around them, Gandalf was slain. But not before his sword of Gondolin stabbed the Balrog in the heart, if a heart he had. The two fell together into the lava, and the Fellowship had not the time to look back, running down the mountain of fire towards safety, where they could escape their own doom. And so it was that Middle-earth was saved, but there was little hope left for its people. The elves, men, and dwarves would unite to end Saruman together, but there was no Gondor left, not truly, no Rohan, no wizard to unite them in a time of peace. The Fourth Age would begin with the rebuilding of the West upon the ashes of war, the outcome of a Balrog's endurance and wrath against the West. And so, my friends, we come to the end of our tale. Hey everyone, Yoyston here, and I hope you all are doing well, wherever you are in Middle-earth. I also hope you all enjoyed this kind of insane theory. I had a fun time contemplating it and throwing it together. It's a mixture of horrible sorrows, but also epic battles and strange occurrences that would happen. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Would it happen like this or some other way? I think unity between evil would have been disastrous for the West, and disunity is almost inevitable with evil. Perhaps they could have still destroyed the ring as they did here, but honestly, who knows? It just would have been bad for a lot more people if the Balrog had been engaged in warfare. Let me know and leave a like and share if you enjoyed it. If you'd like to support the channel, please consider getting some candles from our friends Mythologie Candles, or order some Weta Reunited Cutlery, Lord of the Rings sword statues, and other replicas from Castle Kon, who does international shipping, and use the code WEST at checkout. Please check out our merch. Join our memberships and Patreon for access to our Discord and our monthly podcast, an episode of which just dropped recently. Thanks to our Valar patrons and YouTube members, Ed Patterson, Comic Nut 64, Brian Hunley, Peter Sheppard, John Hume, Rhys Jenkins, Arthur Merlin, Theodore, Zoomi, Todesmorgen, and Joby Weasel. Thank you all so much for keeping the channel going. Please subscribe to join the Men of the West, and I'll see you all again next time. My friends, thank you all so much for joining me on this adventure. Until the next one.